Members, okay, once again, I'm sure we can now start our meeting. I'm not sure if you're going to beam us the agenda. Let me get onto the agenda.
Yes, Chair, it's being beamed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
I got it. Honorable members, we are actually expecting to get a presentation by National Treasury on the Division of Revenue Amendment Bill today, and so I've welcomed you. Is there any apologies?
Yes, Chair, I received one apology from Honorable Takuraj Bansi. She's out of the country. She had indicated that she would join if possible. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Honorable members, any other apologies? I take it none. We do constitution of the meeting. Yes, we do constitute the meeting. We do have a quorum. Can we then move on to item number 4, adoption of the agenda?
Propose adoption, Chair.
Thanks for all, Lord Honorable Rogers. Can I have a seconder, please?
Seconded, Chair, CQ.
Thank you, CQ, Honorable CQ. Can we then get a presentation by National Treasurer on this Division of Revenue Amendment Bill? I'm not sure who's going to take us through.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to present the 2023 Division of Revenue Amendment Bill to the committee. And Emmanuel, if you can just flood the presentation. It's going to be a 3-person show presentation. I'm going to do the opening remarks and put the Division of Revenue Amendment Bill into context. And Emmanuel Pillay is then going to present to the committee changes related to the provincial fiscal framework. And Akanyang Modise is going to present on the local government fiscal framework. And all 3 of us are here to also deal with the questions posed to the committee. Emmanuel, the presentation looks a bit strange. There's just a very small part of the presentation showing. I don't know if you can maybe look at that. It's just showing a quarter of the presentation and not the full presentation. I don't know if you can reload again.
It seems to be showing half of almost everything that we are trying to present.
Thanks, Emmanuel. That's much, much better. Now we can see the full presentation. Thank you very much for that. I'll put my camera off just to improve the sound quality. If we can then go to the next slide. What we're going to present, I've already highlighted. Next slide, please. Okay, what is quite important, the adjustments budget happens in a very, very specific context. So it's not a new budget, it is a budget to deal with in-year changes. What we present or table in Parliament in February and then gets presented to the provincial legislature as part of the process is the Division of Revenue Bill. The Division of Revenue Bill is quite a thick document, over 300 pages, and it consists of actual bill clauses. It consists also of annexures, and it also consists of appendices. So what happens is the core part of the bill, which is the clauses and the schedules that deal with the allocations, they become part of the Act. And then it gets formally assented to by the President. After that process, the detail of the allocations then get gazetted by the Minister of Finance 14 days after the bill has been assented to, and that then remains the allocations. Those allocations are then changed in year, and those in-year changes are contained in the 2022 Division of Revenue Amendment Bill, and it's done in terms of Section 30/2 of the Public Finance Management Act. And the red highlighted portions indicating what this bill caters for. It firstly caters for, and it's not very popular, unfortunately. We had to do a balancing act to get the fiscal framework to be in a sound position. As was presented during the fiscal framework, the budget is severely constrained, and we're spending more than what we can afford, because the revenue or tax revenue that we get in has declined, economic growth has declined, and the ability to secure loans have also is not as robust as it used to be in the past. So all of those had to be taken into account. It wasn't taken lightly, and it required the provincial fiscal framework and the local government fiscal framework, together with the national fiscal framework, to be consolidated. So it deals with adjustments required due to significant and unforeseeable economic and financial events affecting the fiscal target set by the annual budget. So we're not achieving what we said we're going to achieve in February. The situation has significantly worsened. Then B, it deals with unforeseen and unavoidable expenditure recommended, and that largely deals with issues such as additional funding needed for disasters. Then it also allows an E, the shifting of funds between and within votes, and you will see there's a few changes and shifts done in terms of conditional grants. And then it also allows for the rollover of unspent funds from the preceding financial year, and we'll present that also to the committee as it relates to the provincial fiscal framework and the local government fiscal framework. Next slide, please. Okay, what this slide indicates is the top schedule, Schedule 1 from the 2020 DORA. And you could see there's a column A and a column B. Column A dealt with the 2023-24 allocations, and column B dealt with the forward estimates. If you then go to the adjustments budget, column B falls away and column A gets extended. The original column A remains. Then there's an additional column added, adjustment. If it's in brackets, it means a minus. If it's not in brackets, it means a plus. And then the far rightest column then indicates what the new adjustment allocation is. So if you look at national, you could see that the adjustment has been made of 2.6 billion rand downwards. Provincial allocations have been adjusted upwards by 17.6 billion, and as Emmanuel will indicate to you, it's largely to deal with the COE and the health and education sectors. And then the local government equitable share has been reduced by 1.4 billion. And what is quite important to note, that it will not result in any reduction to municipal allocations. It has got to do with money that was unallocated at the beginning of the financial year. So it will not have an adverse impact on the equitable share of any municipality in here. Next slide, please. And I then hand over to Emmanuel that will take you through the provincial changes. Thanks.
Thanks, Wendy. Good afternoon, Chair, honourable members, and colleagues from Provincial and National Treasury. So Wendy did give a context in terms of the fiscal situation that we are in, but I think our presentation starts on a slightly positive note. In terms of additions that we've made to provinces, taking into account the severe fiscal situation that we are in, we still managed to add some funds to assist provinces in terms of the pressures they're experiencing on the compensation of employees. So overall, we added around 17.5 billion rand to provinces. So in in absolute terms, KZN receives the largest share of that, just over 3.7 billion of that. And this was based on, in terms of the actual head count in provinces. And it's more towards the health and education sectors, which are personnel heavy. So that's where most of our staff are. If you look at the education with the teachers and health with the doctors and nurses. So that's where we allocate those funds. So we estimate that of these funds will make up around 78% of what the shortfalls are in province on average. And unfortunately, the balance will have to be funded by the department's baselines. The other two is in terms of reprioritization and reductions. I'll come to the reduction just now, but in terms of reprioritization, there is a school infrastructure backlog grant, which is an indirect grant to provinces. So here the funds don't actually flow to the province, but the National Department of Basic Education implements projects on behalf of provinces and transfer it back into the asset register of provinces there. So there is some slight reprioritization where funds were moved out of that grant and taken to the Department of Basic Education's baseline. 32 million will be used for COE shortfalls in the department, and 25 million for information or ICT upgrades in the department. If you look at the 2022-23 financial year, there was some underspending on the grant, on school infrastructure backlogs grant, and of that underspending, 93 million rand is approved to be rolled over. That means it'll be taken over to the current financial year and be part of the adjustments of that financial year. If you look at the write-up we've got there, it just indicates that it's for completion of sanitation projects and also for the school infrastructure delivery initiative. And 18 million rand goes towards professional fees and management costs. In terms of the provinces where these projects are due to be implemented, it's Eastern Cape, KwaZulu-Natal, and Limpopo. Unfortunately, there were reductions that we had to implement this financial year, but as we indicated earlier, the provincial equitable share is not affected. In fact, the funds were added to the provincial equitable share. So where the reduction actually happened was on the conditional grants, and there's a list of conditional grants there that you'll see the reductions are made to. It's just over 6.5 billion rand.
Colleagues, is it myself that is not hearing?
No,
nothing wrong with your hearing, CQ.
Okay, thanks.
I think we have lost it from their side, I think.
Emmanuel, we've lost you. You're frozen. Okay, and maybe I should continue until he joins. And I see the presentation has also disappeared. So I think he's just logging out and logging in. Let's just give him a minute, please.
Okay.
I'll beam the presentation for you, Wendy, so you can continue while Emmanuel joins.
Thank you, Lifesaver. Okay, I see Emmanuel is back again. So Emmanuel, I don't know if you want to take over again. We basically didn't do anything since you left, so you got frozen on the slide. Over to you. And Don't show your face. I think it's just messing up the bandwidth for now, if it's fine with the committee.
Yes, no, it's fine. You
Okay,
can continue.
Thank you, Chair. Apologies for the interruption. If you go to the previous slide, just in terms of the reductions, as we indicated, just over 6.5 billion rand across all provinces. But there is a slide that will indicate the impact on KZN by itself. So in terms of the cuts, you'll see some grants were spared. So it's not all grants that were cut. For example, the school nutrition grant was not cut. There were some grants in health, like National Treasury Services grant that was not cut, and you'll see a list of that. So the cuts itself was up to the discretion of the national department. So they had to decide which grants to cut and by how much. And taking into consideration the spending and performance on a historical trend, they took a decision to cut these grants by that certain amount over there. You'll see that there is a reduction to the school backlogs grant at the bottom as well, which is an indirect grant, as I mentioned earlier. So it's not a direct transfer to the province. There was some funds, around 85 million, that we took away from the school backlogs grant as well. Then that's to cushion the impact on the early childhood development grant. If we hadn't done that, then the cut on the ECD grant would have been much more severe. Next one, please. Okay, in terms of the section 15.4, if there's any changes to framework to the framework that we tabled at the beginning of the financial year, or with the main budget, then we need to consult Parliament in terms of those changes. So Western Cape, or the Western Cape province, did a reconfiguration of their provincial departments. They made some mergers and things like that. So just to account for that, to ensure that the EPWP grant is allocated to the correct department after the reconfiguration, we need to make that change there. Next slide. So this is the changes to the KZN itself in terms of the reduction, and you can see I won't go through each of the reductions, but you'll have an idea in terms of where the reductions are, and you may also be able to see which grants were paid.
Can the slide be enlarged?
Sorry, I'm not sharing. I'm not sure who's doing it.
As Paizen, any possibility to enlarge the screen? We hardly see it a little bit more. I'm not sure. Honourable members, can you see? I think it's a bit better now.
Yes, that's better.
Okay. Now that's fine. Then we can proceed, Emmanuel.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Just to confirm, you will see at the top on the reductions column, there was no reduction to the equitable share, but rather an addition. So overall, just under 1.226 billion rand was cut from the KZN conditional grants, and there's a breakdown there. For example, you'll see in agriculture there was just under 25 million that was cut, and then was it health as well? There's about 365 million, and the next slide will give you more detail on that. I won't go through each one in the interest of time, but if there's a question about a particular grant, we can address that. I think the next slide is just a continuation of the cuts. If you could go to that one. Yeah, and the next slide. Yeah, okay, thanks, Chair. I think I'll hand over to my colleague from the local government. Thank you.
Thanks, Emmanuel. You can proceed.
Good evening, honourable members. Thank you, Wendy and Emmanuel. I will take you through the local government changes. I'll just switch off my camera, if that's okay.
Yes, it's okay.
Next slide, please. Okay, so honourable members, this slide basically talks to the adjustments to the 2023-24 local government allocations. For the first one is the declared under expenditure of an allocated amount of 1.4 billion under the equitable share. So with this one, we've accommodated instances where the tariffs, if the tariffs increase higher than what NERSA has approved, this essentially means that the free basic energy would be covered by this 1.4 billion that's unallocated. And then the next one is the additions to the disaster grants, namely the disaster recovery and the disaster relief or response. This is for the damaged infrastructure that was caused by the floods that occurred last year in Feb and March for the recovery. This is for 1.2 billion, which is added to that. And then for the municipal disaster response, an additional 372 million has been added towards the baseline. And then with regards to the conversions, there are 2 municipalities and 1 grant under the NDPG. The first 2 is the Utukela for 10 million for the MIG. This is for the Ekuvukeni water supply project. And then for Mfuleni in the Gauteng province is for 20 million. This is to implement the sewer system in Sebokeng. And then in terms of the grants, the NDPG is shifted with an amount of 88 million. This is to assist those municipalities that are having administrative and financial challenges. So this would mean that the transferring officer would implement on behalf of these municipalities with the technical assistance. Next slide. Another adjustment is in terms of reprioritizations. This is for the INEP 6B, the ESCOM grant, which is under the budget vote of the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy, which will be to fund for those mines that have been neglected or without owners. And then secondly, an amount of 309 million, it's shifted between the indirect RBIG and the WSIG under the Department of Water and Sanitation. And this is mainly to assist those municipalities which are struggling to manage their contractual obligations as well as other budget-related matters. Next slide. Okay, so while still on the adjustments, this one is on the fiscal consolidation reductions. And for 5B or direct grants like MIG, there's a downward adjustment of 3.4 billion. I don't know if the members can see the table, but I'll just talk to what's written on the right-hand side. There's a reduction of 3.4 billion. And with the capacity grants, such as the ISDG and the EPWP grants, there's a downward adjustment of 99 million. And then lastly, the indirect or the INEP ESCOM, there's a downward adjustment of 250 million. Next slide. Okay, so here I will talk to the changes to gazetted framework and allocations. So these are done in terms of section 15.4 of the 2023 DORA, which mainly says that National Treasury is required to consult Parliament on any conditional grant changes and corrections. So the first one is the grant framework change, whereby 1.2 billion has been ring-fenced for disaster-related projects, as I mentioned earlier. And however, this funding may only be spent subject to the approval by NDMC. And the other one is the changes to allocation. This is with the indirect RBIG, where an amount of 20 million for a water project was allocated to Dr. Bayes Nadir and is now correctly allocated to Sundays River Valley, local municipality within the Eastern Cape. Next slide. So, honorable members, this table basically just shows the adjustments specific for KZN municipalities for the 2023 financial year. I don't know if you can just make it small just so I can see the adjustment. Okay, so in terms of the transfers for infrastructure grants, these have been adjusted by 300. Sorry, let me just say the total. By the total allocation that's adjusted is 10.8 billion. This is from 11.1 billion. And then for capacity grants, the adjusted allocation is 432.8 million. And so the bottom line adjustment is 333.6 million, which brings the total allocation for KZN municipalities to 11.2 billion. Next slide. Okay, I think that's all from my side, honorable members. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That is our presentation.
Thanks, Wendy. Honorable members, here is the presentation. We are now on the discussion. So, Honorable Rogers.
Thanks very much, Chair. Thanks for the presentation. I can't say I'm really excited about the presentation. It's not good news for our province. So I've got three simple questions, Chair. The 78% of the wage agreement, is that the 78% of the total provincial negotiated wage agreement, or is it only 78% of health and education combined? If I do my calculations, the 3.7 billion that we've been given towards COE, 1.2 billion of that comes out of our own conditional grants. So National Treasury is only giving us an additional 2.5 billion. Do I understand that correctly? And then I'd like to ask National Treasury this question. It's perhaps a grade 4 question with a simple answer, but I don't get it. Why do we do our budgets, prepare everything, and then have wage negotiations after we've concluded that process? Why is it not the other way around? Perhaps I can just be given some insight into why that is, because every year this becomes a challenge. Thanks very much, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Rogers. I saw Honorable Govender.
Thanks, Chair. Chair, mine is just one question. So in terms of the DORA, we have not received any increases whatsoever. The only thing we receive is the allocation towards education and health, some assistance in the funding of the wage increase. But I don't seem to see anything else. Am I correct on that one, Chair?
I think for me, that's what I was also going to ask, what just Honorable Rogers have just said on the issue of the amount that has been given to us. If you look at that calculation, even the education and health as well, it's not like it's 100%. For me, it tells me it's almost 70%. They are still going to be short. What about other department? I'm not sure. Maybe they will give us the clarity on that. Honorable members, is there any other member who wants to get a bite on this before I give it back to Wendy? No one. Okay. Wendy, I think you can just come in and then please just give us that clarity. It's not a very good meeting at this time. I was actually expecting something better. It seems to be getting worse than what we thought of. Wendy, let me hand it back to you.
Thank you very much. And I'm going to ask my colleagues to also add. I'm just going to firstly deal with the questions posed. With regard to the 78%, is it for 78% for health and education in the province, or is it 78% for the total personnel bill in the province? It's 78% of the health and education budget. A lot of national departments, there's just a few exceptions, the security cluster, which is also very personnel intensive. but most departments are expected to fund the additional wage increase through reprioritization. I know that's not nice news, it's not good news, but unfortunately the fiscus is constrained, and it is more constrained than what we projected it to be in the February budget due to various developments. But Emmanuel, if you can maybe also add to that response, exactly how the amounts are calculated for health and how it's calculated for education, and what the total additional amount consists of. Then why do we first prepare budget, then the wage negotiations? A very good question. Unfortunately, there's always going to be some misalignment because we prepare the budget long before even the wage negotiations are concluded. And there will always be a lag of some sort. That is unfortunately the reality that we sit with. And we also know that there's often delays in wage negotiations that makes that situation so much worse. And that is one of the reasons why multi-year agreements are preferred, because it does give that type of budget certainty that we're looking for, and it makes it easier to correctly budget for the these additional costs. Then with regard to whether only additional money is received for health and education, and whether there's any additions over and above that, if Emmanuel, if you can deal with it in terms of the provincial fiscal framework, if there's any additions to conditional grants, and then or rollovers and the like, and Akanang, if you can deal with if there's any increases to local government conditional grants, if so, which ones? So Emmanuel, can I first hand over to you, followed by Akanang? Thanks.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Wendy. Yeah, I think Wendy covered most of what I wanted to say in terms of the expenditure. So it's true. I mean, if you look at the total receipts that the province receives from national government, being equitable share and conditional grants, I mean, the net effect would be between the 3.7 and the 1.2 billion rand in terms of the addition of 3.7 and the taking away or reduction of 1.2 billion rand. So as Wendy indicated, I mean, if you look at the pressures that provinces are experiencing at the moment, the pressure is primarily in compensation of employees, paying your doctors and your nurses and your teachers. That's where the pressure is, and it's particularly the case in KZN. The committee may have been briefed by the provincial treasury in terms of the second quarter expenditure, and that's where the pressure is. It's in compensation of employees in both health and education. So that's why the funding was directed towards health and education, compensation of employees. But then on the other hand, if you look at where the reductions were made, the reductions were actually made on infrastructure-related grants. So just under R1 billion was taken away from infrastructure, not necessarily compensation of employees. And infrastructure can, to a certain extent, be deferred in terms of the implementation or maintenance, but you can't defer the compensation of employees. So that's the balance that we had to strike in terms of that. But the Honourable Rogers is correct that the net effect is the difference between 3.7 and the 1.3 billion. So in terms of adjustments, there are some conditional grant rollovers that we granted to the province from the previous financial year to the current financial year, but that we can't say is additions because it was rollovers that we made based on commitments that we made in the prior year. So it's just to offset those commitments there. Thank you, Chair.
Akanang, over to you.
Thank you, Wendy. Thank you, honourable members. I think if the honourable members would have seen from what Wendy presented in the few slides in terms of the changes in the schedules, the overall adjustment in terms of local government was a down adjustment of 1.3 billion. So, of course, we see that there's a regression in terms of allocation of funds to local government, but also this is part of also what the minister said in the MTBPS, part of the fiscal consolidation measures, with the aim of decreasing or increasing rather the debt service costs for our expenditure for government. I don't know if that explains, but I wouldn't be able to say the amounts per grants, but the overall adjustment was 1.4 billion negative. Thanks.
I'm not sure, must I say thank you or because it's quite depressing. I think we hear you. But what I wanted just to find out, when you talk about the infrastructure being the money that might have been taken from, especially from us, especially on the education part, does it mean, does it affect the storm damage school, which goes back, I think it's almost what, 5 years or 10? Does it also affect that because you are taking from the infrastructure? I'm not sure, maybe just if I can just be clarified on that. Because we've got quite a list that is still outstanding from quite some time ago.
I'm
not sure who is supposed to be unmuting somewhere. Sorry about that, Wendy. I think you can proceed.
Thank you, Manuel. Can I ask you to come in on the adjustments and particularly the disaster-related question?
Yes, thanks, Wendy. So in terms of the funds that were allocated for disasters, if you look at the framework of the grant, those funds are earmarked. So we cannot interfere with those funds. So those wouldn't have been affected. It's just your normal EIG funds that would have been affected. And obviously, the National Department would have as a sector determined what the sort of status is in terms of projects within provinces and taken a decision in terms of those ones that could have been deferred or actually were it ready for implementation. But in terms of the disasters, none were affected. Thanks, Jay.
Oh, okay. No, thanks a lot. Honourable members, here it is. Honourable Rogers.
Okay, I've got another question. Obviously, the province now finds itself in a difficult position with the wage negotiation and the shortfall. Does national departments face the same challenge? Have national departments been funded the full wage agreement, or they're in the same position as we are? Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Governor.
Well, Chair, I wanted to just raise this matter. You see, I'm looking at the shortfalls that departments have. And departments like health, education, social welfare, social development have accruals, right? So this is obviously going to be having a huge impact on the actual budget for service delivery.
Yes. By look of things, it's going to have that serious impact. Even with health as well, I think it's going to be the same thing. It's going to be difficult to operate in this situation. Wendy or Emmanuel?
Thank you. I'll open and Emmanuel can add as well. With regard to were national departments funded for the COE in full, or is it the pressure only placed on provinces? And maybe what I need to highlight is that in terms of most national departments, with the exception of the security cluster, and those are 3 departments, the National Department responsible for police, and also the Department for Defense, for example, those were the only departments that were also assisted to a much lower level than the 78%. Most national departments need to cover that out of their own baselines through reprioritizations. So, for example, the National Treasury will need to fund it out of baseline. Trade and industry will have to. DFFE will have to, so most national departments, with those exceptions, need to fund it out of baselines. The reality is, there needs to be some breaks on staff appointments across national and across provinces. And that is also why the DPSA has, issued the document or circular to let us know that, there's specific processes that now need to be followed if you want to fill any vacancies that's occurred after 1 October. And that will be in place until 31 March 2024. So we're fully aware that this is not without pain, but we have not made it lightly. If the fiscus collapse, then in any case, then we sit in a much worse situation. So everyone is required to bear a fair share in trying to get the fiscal system to be financially sustainable again. And we do know it is not easy, and it's going to put pressure on everyone throughout the system. And then, what was the other question? I didn't write it down. Emmanuel, can you assist with adding to the remaining question, please, and also add to what I've said?
I'm not sure if Honorable Govender wants to clarify a question, or is there any addition?
Chair, I'm actually wanting to raise one other issue. I'm sorry I omitted it, right? But you know the social sector EPWP incentive grant that social development receives, that has declined by almost 50%. Any idea what's going on and why is there this decline?
Emmanuel, can I ask you to answer?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So I'll start with the EPWP question. So the EPWP allocations are made on a sort of performance basis. So it takes into account historical performance. I think it's between a year and 18 months prior to the current cycle. So it depends on what the department has, the performance of the departments in the previous financial years in terms of the number of full-term equivalents and things like that. So if you want the information, we can obtain it from the Department of Public Works, which provides the detail in terms of that. But generally, it's performance based. So if the departments don't perform in a certain area, then the allocation for the following year will be reduced. But we can provide the detail for that if you prefer. The other question, Wendy already spoke about the pain that national departments are taking and provinces as well in terms of their baselines. The unfortunate reality is that the key pressures that provinces were facing were in health and education. And it's key areas, your doctors, your nurses, your teachers, and in terms of their salaries that need to be paid. While we understand that social development is important, social workers are important, the unfortunate reality is that given what we had to allocate, we were only able to satisfy or partly satisfy what the needs were in health and education. So all other departments in all provinces will have to look at reorganizing their baselines, reprioritizing, looking at goods and services, infrastructure and transfers as well, in order to meet their commitments. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Rogers.
Thanks, Chair. This will be my last question, I hope. So if 78% is covering only 78% of two departments, the 3.7 that's being allocated, what is that as a percentage of the total wage negotiated agreement for the province? Would Treasury, National Treasury, be able to give us that figure?
Emmanuel, I don't know if you've got that calculation on hand or whether we can go back to NT offices and quickly do that calculation. I see Carol has got a hand up, so most probably she's got that information in any case. Thanks.
Oh, thanks, Carol. I didn't see that you're here as well. You can come in, Carol.
Good evening, Chair and honourable members and colleagues for National Treasury. Yeah, if I do a basic calculation, we'd estimated the wage bill to be 5.3% for the province. So it's about 69.8% that we're receiving for the total wage bill for the province.
Thanks, Carol. I'm not sure if it answers Honorable Rogers.
Indeed, it does. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. Do we have any other unanswered questions, honorable members? I am not sure, but it feels like I must ask our Carol to able to just to summarize this whole report that we have just received, if she can just take us through, because it seems to be quite a bit frustrating, and the issue of numbers at this time, after we have sitted the whole day, I believe that can we then, Carol, assist us on just a summarized version of this whole lot? Then we clearly understand, because by look of things, we know that we have a serious challenge with health and education. Yes, the issue of I think it's the ECDs. I'm not sure. That's what I will also suggest, if it's possible that we get that chance, maybe early in the new year.
Thank you, Chair. I think next Friday we are tabling the adjustment estimates. That I think will also provide the committee with a better understanding of how we've allocated this funding, as well as the unspent funding from the previous financial year and the contingency reserve. It's not substantial, but at least we'll give the committee a sense of how we've allocated that. And hopefully by then we will also have an indication from departments in terms of what they are doing to curtail their expenditure within their budgets, because as you saw in the mid-year position, most departments were projecting to overspend because of this COE issue. But they have been tasked since August to already start looking at how they can manage within their budgets. Thanks, Chair.
All right. No, it's clear. Thanks a lot, Carol. I think, honorable members, it's now clear. Let's see if we can just engage for next week on this one. The other one will go to, is it item 7? Conferral of a negotiating mandate.
Yes, Chair.
Yes. Who's going to be taking us through on this one?
Chair, the legal advisor, Mrs. Benjamin, can do the background, and then the chairperson will take over. Thank you, Chair.
Is she here, our legal advisor?
Yes, Chair, she's logged.
I'm here. I'm here, Chair. Sorry, I'm just trying to flight the report, the draft report.
All right.
I just want to check, is everybody able to see that document?
No.
No, not yet. Maybe before our legal advisor come in, I'm sure we can release our National Treasury now, because I believe they have done their part. And so then we'll just proceed with our legal advisor. if it's fine, but if they still wants to be here, it's okay also. We can release them.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, we can proceed.
Thank you, Chairperson. Just in by way of back.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Chair. I do apologize.
No problem.
Chair, I just wonder, I don't have a mandate from my caucus to actually make any principled decision on this division of revenue bill. I'm not sure how the other political parties feel, but I certainly wouldn't be happy to either support or reject it until I have consulted with my caucus. Thanks, Chair.
Other members, what is the suggestion?
I'm in the same ship as Honourable Rogers.
Okay. All right. What will we do? You. Who is that now? Please mute. I'm not sure who is this. Honourable members, what is then do we suggest? Do we move it to Honourable Madopa?
Yes, Honourable Chair. Hey, we are frozen about this report that we have got from the National Treasury. But what I suggest, Chair, because if the other parties, they have not discussed this in their caucus, it will be difficult for us to proceed. Maybe we have to suggest maybe next week to look at the date before the presentation that will be done by our provincial treasurer on the 30th.
Thanks, Honourable Madopa. I saw Spa raise his hand.
Chair.
Honourable Governor.
Chair, I think we actually need to deal with this matter before Tuesday next week. I could be wrong, but my understanding is it's on the agenda on Tuesday.
Okay. So, yeah, because it has to be dealt with on that Tuesday, but now it's going to be impossible to deal with all other parties having dealt with it.
Chair, if I could come in.
Yes.
On next week, Monday, is the date when the negotiating mandates need to go to the select committee. So it's the 27th, and then the final mandates, which will have to be adopted by the House, is on Tuesday, the 28th. If Margaret is still on the platform, maybe she can advise us what time the select committee is meeting on Monday to consider the provincial negotiating mandates.
I think I saw Wendy still here.
Thank you so much. Let me just check my diary. It's consideration of negotiating mandates on Monday, the 27th, in terms of what I've got from 12:30 till 13:30. And then the final mandates is on Wednesday, the 29th of November at 4 o'clock. We all know, of course, that it can still change, but that is what I've got from our parliamentary office. Thanks.
Thank you, Margaret.
Chair.
Yes.
If I can suggest, yes, Chair. If I can suggest that parties go back, consult with their caucuses, and then perhaps on Monday morning at about 8 or 8:30, we have a virtual meeting where we look at the report and the conferral of the mandate.
Okay. I wanted, actually, thanks, Honourable Governor. I wanted just to check with our legal advisor if maybe I was also looking at that time, maybe to have a report back meeting or a visual meeting on Monday early before the 12 o'clock. maybe also, because I'm sure all the parties now have received this, can we then be okay with that time? And our legal advisor as well to comment. I'm not sure if SPA is still, his hand is up.
Thank you, Chair. No, Chair, I lowered my hand after you put the suggestion to the members, yes, because I wanted to say, Chair, if it's Mondays are caucus days, and the legislature, at least the administration side, is very strict when they hear that a meeting was convened on caucus day, I could get into trouble. But if the members of the committee all agree that it can be convened on Monday, then there shouldn't be any problem. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Pam. There's a suggestion
Chair?
of 8:30. Yes, Honorable Governor.
Yes. Chair, if it's a virtual meeting, I don't think it's a problem, and it's early. I'm sure we can proceed with that.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's what I'm also suggesting. To our legal advisor, please give us an advice and our suggestion of 8:30 on Monday, if that would be appropriate.
Chair. Honorable Chair.
Honorable Madopa.
Thank you so much. Knowing the caucus day, how strict they are, the organization, because I don't think IFP is with us here also. I remember one day when we were suggesting the Monday, irrespective at what time, I will request that the chair consult with the members if we agree on the morning of Monday, but not just start SPA to coordinate it. I know also Nkanyiso was in great trouble when they were organizing for Monday. But if you consult with them and the whips, for those organization. But Comrade, oh no, it's other thing. Rogers, Comrade Rogers is here.
Comrade.
It's Honorable Rogers.
Oh, sorry.
But also Honorable de Klerk is also here as well from the IFP.
Yes,
that's correct. The IFP is here, but also
that's what I'm requesting, that if they can today speak with their whips to say it's an urgent thing, it's not going to take long, so that they can allow USPA to coordinate, because they were told not to do anything on Mondays. Thanks.
Thank you. I think that was going to be the route that we are going to take, being members, being here, and then they'll go and consult with their parties, and then maybe they will come back, and then either today or tomorrow, I'm not sure. Honorable Rogers?
Chair, I'll save you or SPA some time. I will inform my chief whip. Otherwise, I will be asked, waar was jy?
Can we then give the same to Honorable de Klerk as well?
That is correct, Chair. Ek weet waar ek was, so I'll also arrange that.
Thank you. Can we then get the answers around tomorrow? What time maybe we'll be ready for us? Just to highlight it to SPA before we do any preparations. Can we get it maybe by lunchtime to SPA, just the confirmations? Or the confirmation to me, I'm not sure. Can we really do that? I saw the hand. I'm not sure if it's Wendy or somebody else.
No, it is my hand. I just want to indicate I've gone to the program, the latest one that's circulated, and it is definitely consideration of the negotiating mandates is on between 12:30 and 13:30, and it's and then even more scary, the next day, not Wednesday, it's at 4:00. It is the consideration of the final mandate. So there's quite a bit on the pressure on the committees then to get the negotiating mandates in, and then just one day then to get the final mandates in. So it's not Wednesday, it is Tuesday, the 28th. It was originally the Wednesday, and I see it's been shifted to Tuesday. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks, Wendy. I saw, is it Ven? Oh.
Yes, Chair, Honourable Chairperson, it's Werner.
Oh,
I'm just wondering if it is at all possible for us to meet tomorrow sometime after the honourable members get their mandates from their parties, sometime later in the afternoon, because it's going to take 5 minutes, literally. It's a very short report. Then we would meet our time frames, and we would do away with the need to meet on a Monday, which is a caucus day. That's just a proposal from my side.
Thanks, Vena. There is another suggestion, if honourable members will be comfortable with.
Happy, Chair.
Thank you. Because I think it will also be better than going to Mondays where we have to go through a lot of those permissions and all. Honourable de Klerk?
Also happy, Chair.
Honourable Max and Honourable Madlopa?
As long as it's not too late, Chair.
Chair,
that's fine.
We'll go with what you are saying, Chair.
Okay. I think, can we then be able to have been finalized around about 10 o'clock tomorrow? Then at least we can then finalize the meeting for immediately after we have finalized with our caucuses.
Chair, are you proposing? Sorry, Chair, are you proposing we reconvene at 10? I would say that gives me very short time. I would prefer sort of around midday if that's possible.
Okay. How's 2 o'clock, honourable members? Honourable Makeba? Or is it Vena again?